everybody. Welcome to In the Know with Nina. I'm your host, Dr. Nina Crowley. I'm the Director for Clinical Education and Partnerships at SICA, where we partner with healthcare professionals and clinicians to offer body composition solutions. I'm so excited today to be joined by Amanda Bonello. She's the founder and executive director of the GLP-1 Collective, which is a nonprofit, and she's owner and CEO of GLP-1 Access, LLC, and a big advocate for affordable access to GLP-1s. So, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited we got connected. And after we had our initial chat, I said we need to make this a little more public and talk about what you're doing in this space. And I think you have, a great story to tell. So I'm excited to be able to talk with you today.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to share anywhere. Advocacy is all about making noise, right?
It is, yeah. And we just got back from being at the Obesity Action Coalition conference, which was in DC, and doing a Hill Day with a lot of other patients. And so it was it was just really powerful to be there this year, even more, with an even more loud group of advocates than usual. So I want to, give you a platform to talk a little bit about what you're doing and then we can kind of dive into your story a little bit.
Thank you.
So, tell me how you kind of get started because this has been a recent and intense adventure for you, right?
Nonstop, fly by the seat of my pants. Um, I guess we can start with why all of it started, right? So,
Yeah.
um, I wrestled with obesity since I was 12 years old. As a child, I developed ulcers. I ended up in the hospital. I almost died. They stuck me like 20 times before they could get some fluid in me because I was so dehydrated. They ended up putting me on a ton of Prozac Prozac.
Early on.
It's hilarious. It saved my life. They put me on a ton of prednisone and sulfur pills for months, and I just blew up like a balloon. And I've just been wrestling with my weight ever since then. Throughout my entire life, I had people telling me how my body didn't measure up, how my composition was wrong. I'd have people telling me, "Your face is so pretty if you just lost weight." And I remember the first crush I ever had making fun of me, saying that I was Jenny Craig. I went to a church camp where a girl told me I should just be bulimic because it worked for her. Never met her in my life. It was the first thing she'd ever said to me. I spent most of my youth eating lunches in the bathroom alone. I kid you not. It was my childhood and leading up to this point in my life has been solitary and traumatic because of all of these experiences, right? So I ended up having like crippling social anxiety. Now we fast forward to today. I did end up developing bulimia. I wrestled with it for the last decade. Um, there was a whole cycle of excessive exercising, fasting for months, running until all of my muscle was gone, and then binging because I was starving and gaining all of it back. Um, and it was torture. It was absolute torture. And there were just cycles on and off of that over and over again. I would gain a bunch of weight and lose a bunch of weight and gain a bunch of weight and lose a bunch of weight. And I could never enjoy a family gathering because I was always thinking about what people were thinking about the food and about what I was eating and like how I was going to eat because I'm hungry, right? I was looking for a solution and I really thought this was just going to be my life. I finally developed prediabetes and I'm like, okay, something's got to change. I'm really unhealthy and I'm at the point where I'm cutting my life short. This is not a way to live. I found GLP-1s and at that time there were a lot of issues with affordable access and the FDA had just taken tirzepatide off of the shortage list and there were all these people who had lost access. And so I'm researching GLP-1s for the first time. I knew nothing about them. And I'm seeing all these people freaking out like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I've been an alcoholic my whole life. I just quit drinking for the last year. I haven't even thought about booze. And now I've lost access and I don't know what I'm going to do. And I see people saying, I couldn't even hardly get out of bed. And now I'm running half marathons and I don't know what I'm going to do. And I'm like, oh my God, do I want to become another person who is like terrified of losing access and having to worry about spending $1,200 a month on this medication because I can't afford that? And then I thought, but do I want to be stuck torturing myself in the same cycle that I've been in, watching myself deteriorate and get worse, become less healthy, shorten my lifespan, my life quality just going down the drain? And I was like, heck no, I don't.
Yeah, that's a dilemma though, to think really I mean, the access to staying on something that works, it might not be your first thought, but it's definitely, what if it works, right? That's the best case scenario clinically, but it's tough if that's a financial, problem down the line. That's a real
Yeah. Um, and so I realized, it is worth it. And I started looking around to see if there was a group of people or organizations specifically focused on GLP-1 affordability. And I didn't see one specifically focused on that. So first, I was like, okay, ChatGPT, what can I do as one person with like no connections in this world? What can I do? AI said, make a petition. And I'm like, okay, but do petitions really work? Do they really do anything? And it's like, yes, they do. They show that people care and like more things can come from it. And you know what? It was right. Ironically, I went to like around Reddit and the socials trying to get people to sign this petition. And a lot of people did come back to me and say, petitions don't work. Just go gray is a lot of what I got. And I'm like, no, that's not a solution for the majority of people out here. That's not a solution. We need to have other options. And so that petition in just 1 week got 2 media interviews with USA Today and Politico, and then went on to get 7 more. And it was all because of that petition. But the initial interviews inspired me to create the GLP-1 Collective podcast and really give patients a platform to share their stories because stories are powerful, right? And they're relatable. And at this time, I'm thinking there's a lot of misinformation, there's a lot of stigma, and there's not a lot of education or compassion. So let's put a spotlight on the human beings who need this medication or who have had success on this medication so that we can share that it's not scary and it can be life saving in a lot of cases. It was shortly after that that I realized that there really wasn't a whole lot of support in the US in general. There were a lot of scattered resources for GLP-1s specifically. But when it came to like information, it was just everywhere. And how do you know that all of it is legitimate? It's the internet, right?
lots to
So
say.
yes, yes, exactly. So that then moved me to create the GLP-1 Collective nonprofit. And we've been doing work to advocate and support and educate the community and provide as many free resources as we can. And we are working on a prescription assistance program for people who are not insured because those are the people who need the help the most. So I realized I'm almost done. It's a kind of a long story now,
A
but
great story. No,
I'm
this is
sorry.
this is a perfect place for us to talk about this. Take your time.
I realized that running a nonprofit is not easy. It is not easy. Financially, it's like you have to spend thousands of dollars to be able to even ask for money. It's for compliance and legal reasons. And obviously, I am not set up for that. So I did some research and realized that an LLC could help. And I've created the GLP-1 Access LLC to support the nonprofit, to be the action arm of the nonprofit and put advocacy into action for access. So that's where we are today.
I love that. And you're just this has all happened within the last year or so, or
Yeah, since November.
I love that. So, and as we talked about too, the Obesity Action Coalition does many of the things that you were looking for, and so that's been a group that I've been, that's for me. I've been part of that group for a long time, and that's for me like the drive to help patients have better access to reach everybody. It's a daunting task because it's a majority of our population who is, struggling, if you want to say struggling or living with the disease of obesity and wanting treatment. And now that we have treatments that work collectively across, the spectrum, there's lots of options now where there maybe didn't there wasn't in the past. This is it's a big issue. And so there is so much more public attention to it than we used to have. My background is as a dietitian. I worked in a bariatric surgery program for patients who had surgery as their treatment option, which was an effective and is an effective treatment, but it's for a much smaller group of folks than are impacted by the medication arm. And so there's so much that we can do to better support and give access to treatments that are effective now. So glad to have you in this space. It's really great to see.
Thank you. And I want to say that I can see so much value and power in all of the organizations and all of the influencers and advocates out there working together. And I am so incredibly grateful that I was able to get connected with you and the OAC because I have seen you guys making an impact and really supporting the community where it needs it. So, yeah, I think connections are everything, right? And if we can all work together, we can make real things happen. So, I'm just very grateful.
It's a good time. It's a weird time in this space right now, but it's really cool. And so yeah, so something I wanted to come back a little bit to your story. I know you actually did a really great job sort of hitting all the high points, but I wanted to dive in a little bit more. You said you're open to talking about your history and struggle with an eating disorder because we know it impacts so much with body image. And for me as a dietitian and psychologist and now working in body composition, these things kind of all converge in a conversation around weight health and how getting on a scale has been an impact for so many, and how that focus, like you said very eloquently, on growing up and being isolated and all of that has an impact. Adding in disordered eating or eating disorder and then still struggling with obesity and being able to have treatment on a medication. It's an interesting story. But sadly, I think it's more common than we would want to see. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that from you.
Absolutely. I want to say I should probably start earlier with this, but I want to jump right in and say I don't even feel like I have an eating disorder anymore, which is crazy to me because if you know what an eating disorder is, and if you've ever suffered from one, it is all consuming. It is all you think about. You're weighing yourself every day. You're torturing yourself over like food, and food is all you can think about. Like it's hard to work. I couldn't drive home. I had to stop somewhere, sit in my car and binge and then hide the trash like it was a dirty secret. Like talking about calories, talking about weight at family meals would like ruin the entire experience for me. If someone was like, I ate too much and I'm going to have to, I'm going to gain pant size, like innocent comments like that. Really, they are innocent. They're not meant to be hurtful. But like when it's all you can think about, it's really hard not to take everything offensively or critically. You know what I mean?
Yeah, people have no idea unless you've gone through it yourself almost to really, the impact of even just a statement.
Mm, yeah. And once I started this GLP-1, I am ashamed to say that I was also a smoker. I started smoking when I was 14 years old. I thought that I would never truly quit. Off and on every year. I would quit for a year, start back up, quit for 6 months, start back up, quit for 2 weeks, start back up. It didn't matter how long I quit. I tried everything. I tried patches, I tried the gum, I tried pouches. The pouches kept me away from the cigarettes themselves, but I always wanted them, right? Day one, I quit smoking. I quit pouches. I haven't picked it up again. It's been incredibly freeing. So not only is my mind like cleared from the eating disorder noise, but it is also cleared from the desire for nicotine. And I I I want to say full disclaimer, I wanted to quit and I knew that it was going to possibly hinder my body's ability on this medication, that it would maybe be harder on my organs like it already is. But I didn't want to make anything harder on my body because honestly, I was worried about side effects. And day one, I was like, I'm going to throw this all away and I'm going to try my best. And I didn't even have to try.
Wow, so, like, physiologically and, behaviorally and all the other things kind of came together.
Yeah, it was amazing. But yeah, body composition, I was weighing myself every day, sometimes multiple times a day. It was obsessive. And once I started this medication, I really, for the most part, quit weighing myself. I weigh myself once a month, and that is it. And I do have a scale that measures muscle and fat. And it's honestly, it's been pretty steady. So one is not moving more than the other. They're both going down together. But keep in mind that I was excessively exercising a lot before this, right? And I worked FedEx for 3 years. I would wake up at 5 a.m. I would lift weights for an hour. I would go running in the woods, like a hike, like a full on hilly like hike. And then I would go to work and I would run every package. And I was lifting really heavy. And sometimes I would work until 11 o'clock at night. I kid you not. So my entire life was exercising. And my muscle has not been in a bad place. The only time it was bad was when I fasted for 3 months and then ran every day for 8 to 15 miles. That was when I had a problem.
Yeah, so, I mean, you've seen changes over the past decade, big big sweeping changes up and down. What I also thought was really great the way you're framing and talking about your stories initially, it's really about all of these functional, I would say, benefits that aren't even in the weight loss category, right? So you kind of let
Yeah,
how you're feeling, you're talking about quality of life, you're talking about, just mental space from the just the noise or the chatter of both, food thoughts and nicotine, addiction as well. So that's I think an area that we talk so much about, even the name weight loss medication, we don't love using as much because it does so much more than that. Maybe started in that arena, but now every day I'm hearing news stories about, all the different, like you said, depression or addiction and all of these different areas. Even I think Parkinson's is having some impact with this class of medications. And so they're health promoting their, I hate saying the word like miracle because that's so, I don't know,
but
not
it's true.
exactly what they are, but like for so many things, it is changing everything. And it's really cool to be, witness to that.
I hear that a lot, and I've said that myself that we don't want to call it a miracle because that makes it sound unreal. You know what I mean? It's hard to take a miracle seriously sometimes in science, but for so many people, it has been a miracle to them, right? And it has been a miracle in my life. And so I could not imagine losing access now. And even before I'd started this medication, hearing people's stories, it was immediately important to me that the people who needed it had access. If it's had this kind of impact on someone, how could you look at that person and say, nope, you can wait, you can get a better job,
Right.
go get better insurance? Like, it's not reality. And with 500,000 people dying a year in the US to obesity related comorbidities, a lot of people don't have time to just wait. So that's why I've made it my entire life's mission now to make sure that people have the resources that they need in this space.
Yeah, we're gonna need it. I mean, as more medications come down the pipeline and are having different targets, we'll be able to have, more specific medications for different people who, react or respond better to one versus another. And so, yeah, the access really needs to follow. For me, that's been also a lifelong passion living in South Carolina. Started for us with our state health plan not covering bariatric surgery. So, and they still don't. It's 2025. That was a big focus. I'm working at a medical university where the nurses and doctors and care team members who are helping my patients can't have the same treatment when they have the same health condition. It was every single day the most, visually and emotionally like apparent divide. And so that's what got me started, caring a lot more about advocacy. And so, yeah, it's embarrassing to me that I still can't say we made effort in our state. We've had some small wins, and all of that aside, it's a it's a passion that drives people to keep moving, even in an area where like 10 years 11 years after the Treat and Reduce Obesity Act was first introduced, we're still advocating for that to become a reality for people who have Medicare. And hopefully then, that'll trickle down to some of the other insurances. But it's a long game for sure. I think that it's it's worth it. And I am excited to have more people like you who have, a positive experience and care about others outside of your own realm and getting access for you for this moment, care about that for everybody else who can potentially benefit.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that growing up in a bigger body and dealing with all of the emotional trauma that sometimes comes with that shapes people to be more emotionally receptive, right? More empathetic. We can relate. We can all feel for each other to some degree. So it's very hard for me to ignore when people are saying that they're having this freedom of mind that is so hard to get. It's so hard to get. Like, you can try meditating, but it is just not the same.
Right.
It's like some people, you need more than just meditating. You need medical help. You know what I mean? When it comes to your hormones being imbalanced, sometimes there is just a need for medical intervention. So,
Yeah. I mean, so again, kind of coming back from that Obesity Action Coalition meeting that we just had, one of the things that stuck with me so much was hearing patients who were really hearing for the first time, this is a disease. This is not your fault. There's biology fighting against you. And it's a message that I've known for a long time, but it was extra impactful this year to see so many people be like, "Yeah, you're right." Like the messaging that you've heard for so long, as a kid from other kids telling you, "Oh, this is your fault. Just, you're lazy. You need to just." I mean, I hadn't heard that. Just go be bulimic. That worked for me. I mean, that's horrible. And to then, have that follow, that's hard. And so hearing all of that for some people for the very first time, and they may have already had treatment and been experiencing the benefits, but still feeling shame about getting there. And there's still a lot of shame for people taking medication as their treatment option to tell other people because it's become such a public discussion. I mean, I literally
mhm.
was in the emergency room this weekend with my partner, and something came up about, food and eating, and the doc said, like, "Oh, yeah, it's something like, did you wanna have a hamburger or something?" And he's like, "Well, I did too until I started taking Ozempic." I don't know how I was just, like, seeing red at this point. I'm like, "Really? This is the conversations that we're having even in medical settings about medication as an option and having it tied directly to some, you know, stereotypical fully, food choice." Like, come on, you know? So that's a whole nother level, I think, about shame around taking medication being like, "Oh, you had to get there to do that." But then also on the other side, some people taking it to lose, they'd say like vanity weight, right? Famous people taking it to lose 5 pounds and kind of giving it a bad name. So it's a really weird space. The more advocacy, the more education, the more support, the better, I think, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. There's a lot of room for growth in this space, and I'm excited to be a part of it. And I'm not just in this space for obesity, though that is affecting half of the nation. So that is the largest, like most prominent thing that everyone has their eyes on right now. And honestly, I could never be more grateful for it because it has the attention that it now needs, right? Like you've been advocating with the OAC forever. And it's like, finally, people are paying attention. Finally, people freaking care. Thank you for that. But like you said, this medication is even helping with people who have Parkinson's, people who have arthritis, addiction, like so many more indications are going to be approved down the pipeline. And all of these groups of people are going to need support in their own unique ways. So I'm really excited that I was able to get this started so that I could be there for them as well.
Absolutely. And I definitely think, as we talked a little bit about metrics for measuring success too, I think that's been, again, really fun for me to be in this space to say, for all the people who've been traumatized and turned off by, the metric of, hey, hey, we're going to monitor your health, but here we have just a regular scale in our clinic to measure how you're doing, right? That kind of perpetuates some of these ways that we think like, okay, I'm doing great in all these areas, but why are they still measuring just my weight? So I've been, it kind of feels like an advocacy towards the patient to be able to say, we're offering with body composition a way for you to look at, much more and outcomes that are connected to what your clinical team is working with you on. Like, this is why we're getting you to do exercise in a healthy way. It's why we're asking you to lift weights. It's why the outcomes for the impact on body composition, they're not so new. We're so young in this stage that we're going to start to see more and more. And there's no other way to really look at changes that that is so right now feasible and accessible at a small cost, but hopefully we can kind of see some of those things change over time as it becomes more common.
I am so glad that you said that because you've just reminded me. I was around 180 pounds, 5'8", working out like a mad person, feeling honestly pretty good about myself. This is a while back. This is not recent. I went to the gym and I'm like, yeah, I'm kicking butt and I'm feeling good. And then the people at the gym offered to give me this body composition test and they weighed me and they said that I was still considered obese. And I'm like, well, shit. Here I am feeling good about myself, thinking I'm doing everything right. I'm eating right. I'm exercising. And it doesn't even matter. I'm still always going to be too heavy. Right. I remember telling my dad about that. I'm like in my 20s. And he's like, oh, don't listen to them. BMI doesn't even, it doesn't even like matter. It's not real. But it really did make me feel like it would never really matter what I did. Even if I felt great about myself, I was always going to be overweight to everyone else. I will say that during all of these insane stages of overexercising, I have never been able to see and feel my muscle the way that I can now.
Mm,
So that's nice.
yeah. Well, and what's interesting, just to respond to something you said there too, is if at the gym, if they had the body comp equipment, I mean, one of the beautiful thing that it does is tell you everything else beyond just that, like, you have obesity based on a BMI classification, right? So whoever was communicating it there, they didn't get trained by me to say,
No,
so for me, it's like the first piece of data you look at is weight and BMI, or not. But if that's on there, you can say, look, here's this number. This is before having body comp analysis. This is the only piece of data you would have had about how your body size compares to cutoffs or whatever. Let's throw that aside and look at everything else. Let's look at your, muscle mass. Let's look at your body fat percentage. Let's look at your visceral fat, where it is around your organs. And that's what really connects to the health condition. So they totally messed up by not getting into the data of that body comp analysis device that they had. But messaging is important. And so, for me, another piece of advocacy, it's funny, sometimes education we don't connect education as advocacy, but here I think it is. It's like the advocacy work of sharing people's insights from their body comp data is to remind them that there's so much more to the picture than that. And there's so many people who are athletic and who strength train and who have heavy muscles and their body weight is higher because of that. There's no hopeful reason that telling them obesity is where you're at. Here's your number. That doesn't help them move forward in their health journey. Right? So it does help to say, hey, here's where your muscle mass ranks compared to other people of your reference group or whatever. The comparison is it's tough too. We've got these cutoffs, we've got comparisons. This is a whole nother conversation around how do we best give people their data and communicate about it. Because for some things we do have cutoffs. Hey, below this is considered, malnutrition. Above this is considered okay. some parameters, we have that. And for others, we have, here's where you're at compared to other people like you. And that can help you understand where you rank. More to come in that area for research too, because as we have people of more varying sizes, we've got to, kind of update reference groups and sort of think, where does this person line up for them as an individual? And actually, even more importantly, here's their starting point. Now they're on treatment, and what do we expect to see? And at what points do we, if your muscle was declining, then we'd be able to take some sort of action, whether that be, changes in medication, changes in nutrition, changes in movement. But we don't know that unless we see it. And looking at someone's size and just their mass of their body don't give us enough data to make those decisions.
No, that's very true. Yeah, they did measure me and they put me on a scale, but that was pretty much it. And I left feeling very bad and demotivated to continue even trying.
Well, we'll have to get connected at the next meeting, or when we get to meet in person, we'll have to get you on our device and sort of see your reaction to looking at the data in that way too for you.
I'm really curious. I'm very curious. You've got me wondering, like, what's actually going on because I do have a scale that tells me my muscle, bone, and water and fat, right? But it's like one of those $20 scales from Target. And I have no idea how accurate this thing actually is.
Right. Not.
I kind of thought so, but I was like, this will be kind of fun and maybe give me an idea. But yeah, I can't imagine that it's actually accurate.
I mean, if we could make one that good and deliver it home for 20 bucks, we'd be doing it for sure. So, but that said, as a patient-centered care advocate, I care most about you and how you're able to, does that tracking at home periodically help you? Does it help trending on a device that's less accurate help over time? I think there can be a place for that. Frequency of measurement is a big concern for me, for some of the things you said earlier about weighing every day. And so you've committed as part of your treatment for that to doing that once a month as a benchmark. But we don't have an off switch to that where we can say, hey, this only measures you once a month. People can get on there multiple times a day and be chasing numbers that are just changes and fluctuation in biology over the course of a day. And so that's a whole nother thing I definitely talk to our customers about, is making sure that you're measuring people in an appropriate time frame, which is, about a month to 3 months in between, where you would actually see a change in body composition rather than just fluctuations in water, or just other daily shifts that you see. That should be a whole nother topic. I've got lots of thoughts on that topic as well.
Well, yeah, I'm super curious about what you guys are using because I would love to know what's actually going on. I think that it's very important to have all of the data in order to make sure, like you said, that you're on the right track, that your health is going in the right place, because it could not be more true that if you are just losing fat and muscle and withering away, you are not becoming healthier.
Perfect way to end a really great conversation and hopefully a longer term relationship. I think, we'll definitely have to connect in person within the next couple months. And so thanks again for, coming on, sharing your story. We'll definitely put the links to your places in the show notes so people can, help and move the effort forward. And I think that's really great work you're doing. So thanks again.
Thank you. I really appreciate you, Nina, and all the work you do at the OAC and everything you do in general.
Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
Bye.